Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. If you hear loud noises, it's because this trash compactor I'm parked next to is having some work. it is being put to work. It keeps banging around and compacting things, and so if you hear very loud machine noises, that's where it's coming from. It turned on a couple times in the last few minutes, but happy Stud Appreciation Month, happy Masc Appreciation Month, September of 2023. Today we're going to be talking about. Give me a second. Alright, a little bit of quietness. So today we're going to be talking about masc presenting female. I don't know if they identify as a stud. I'm not going to do very good at identifying people, because, one thing I've noticed is that, I'll put it this way. I want to talk about Mal from, what's that freaking show called? The Ultimatum, the Queer Ultimatum, with the AFAB LGBT people. I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about her, but I don't know a lot of the people what they identify as, and I have noticed that there have been a lot of people that I don't keep up with, that I go back and look into their content, and maybe they're using like a different identity. So it's not that I don't care about their identities or that I don't want to like be accurate with it. It's just I'm not looking directly at the details right now. So Mal from the Ultimatum, I've seen Mal being interviewed by Ashley Gavin, by Amber's Closet. Last time I was on a bus down to San Diego, I saw an episode or listened to an episode by a different content creator that had Mal on there. Everybody liked Mal's character. So let me tell you about some things that might be controversial. I'm not against Mal or anybody. Like, I'm not against anybody. I honestly didn't really watch all that much of the Queer Ultimatum. I watched some, but really not that much. If I'm honest, it's not my vibe of show. It's a little stressful for me, dramatic. I'm like, it just, I really have to be in the mood for that kind of stuff. I get that people are into those types of shows, and I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying people shouldn't like it or whatever, but I'm just talking about my own personal opinions. Some things stress me out, and if I'm in the mood to endure that stress, or if I'm, in a place where I can consume such content without it affecting me emotionally in any way, then I don't mind consuming it. But a lot of times things stress me out when there's arguing and, backstabbing and crying and fighting and just drama. There are times in my life when I just don't really want to engage with that kind of content, and that's kind of where I've been lately. Like, I love shows like The Shy, and like there's a lot of shows I like, but that I'd love to be into, but I'm at a time lately where it's like anything that's got an aspect of intensity to it. Like, even last week, I kind of noticed, I was like, I need to kind of stay off this content because it's kind of disrupting it's disrupting my energy. It's kind of getting me in a negative headspace, and I've been getting out of a negative headspace for a really long time. I mean, for the last few recent weeks. So I really don't want to like dive back into it by consuming content that's kind of like it kind of stresses me out. So I try to stay away from it. But from what I do know in the clips I have seen with Mal involved, I guess if we start with the controversy, a lot of people were saying stuff like, she's very well spoken. She's very well presents herself very well and has like good communication skills, and it was coming from all sides, people having this kind of attitude towards, a black female, a mask presenting black female who, you know, is well spoken, kind of has a feminine energy about them as well, isn't exhibiting toxic masculinity, um, you know, and I think people forget that there's a range of people. Now, I don't know if this is even on topic for this pod here on Tomboy Official, but I do have to talk about this. Um, and I don't know how accurate I am with this, but it kind of made me think. A long time ago, I watched this documentary that had a lot of hip hop artists, popular ones like Dre and Ice Cube, and like a lot of people like from the '90s. From the beginning, I guess hip hop technically started in the '80s, but from the '90s, there were the artists that were getting popular then. Um, and let's try this again without the. Hopefully, the trash compactor doesn't go off again. Uh, I hear the click. All right, so um, yeah, just trying to. I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry. So yeah, the controversy that some of the hip hop artists mentioned was, because I've had a friend say this to me that they're like, I don't like hip hop because it has, people just flashing money and their jewelry and their cars and women that are half dressed bouncing their booties around and stuff. And someone mentioned this to me, and it was kind of interesting because it's like, I'm into hip hop music, I'm into the music videos, I like it. But when you're really into something, you notice that there's like the mainstream that gets promoted, and then there's like the stuff that's like, okay, like you might be interested in something more niche or something more rare that isn't just getting like, that's not just getting promoted because it's trendy, right? And stay with me because, you know, I'm not trying to like sound like I'm crazy here. Like, you got to hear me out because this is true. I know it's true because I'm a black person and I create content and I experience these things. And so, one thing that they mentioned in that documentary, and I wish I had the name, but they were mentioning, when you're hip hop artists, you're not really allowed to talk about, you know, things that the mainstream doesn't want you to talk about. Now, if you've ever heard hip hop artists talk, rappers talk, very intelligent people. I would want to say that a lot of them probably have genius level verbal skills. I mean, they've got something that is, you know, very artistic, and they're very skilled and smart. Even the ones that you might not really know about really well, a lot of them are very skilled. When you hear them talk, you're like, okay, like some people think a certain accent means, oh, you're not educated, or if you're using profanity or a certain accent or a certain phrasing of things and like the way you kind of say your words or don't like enunciate certain letters and things like that, people just like look at it and they're like, ah, these people are uneducated gangsters and like they're just like off the streets and happen to get rich. It's like, no, a lot of these people are like strong business minded people. They're very intelligent with their verbal skills, very poetic, but the image they're expected to portray if they want that money from these major corporations is they have to give that image of throw my dollar bill, $100 bills around on the screen and wear big jewelry with the gold grill with some, diamond studs in my teeth and like mumbling all over the place and like having these big flashy cars and driving donuts in the middle of the street kind of thing. That's what they want you to portray. So if you come with an image that's like, say someone like Tupac or someone like Common or someone like, there's so many artists that have, like, when you dive into the music, you're like, there's a lot of depth into these artists, but they're not allowed to promote it. If you look at what gets promoted, it's the stuff that's like fluff, it's like there's not a lot of depth to it. But when you hear them talk and you hear them talk about their lives and share about their stories and share about, their initial music, especially when you hear the initial music from before they got before they got popular, a lot of that music has a lot of depth to it. But people don't do their research. They see what's on the surface, right? They see what's on the surface and they're like, this is what it's like to be a rapper. You're talking about all these things that like are only relatable to rappers because nobody else is talking. Like rock artists aren't throwing money all over the screen and like showing off their gigantic, like rings and necklaces and things and like, you know, that's not really the persona that rock artists are expected to present. Now, it gets controversial when you add somebody like Eminem, who's like a white rapper, and then he was getting, harassed by the FBI because people were listening to his music that were a different crowd of people than what these governments and things want those people to be exposed to. So it really is just like when you look into the stories and you look into the details, don't just look at the surface. It takes a lot of effort not to look at the surface. Uh, but if the more you get into creating content, you notice what gets promoted is what's trending. What's trending is based on what the algorithm says is okay. I can create however many videos I want on topics that I know, or how many podcast episodes I want on topics that I know are important to my people. I can create all that content that I want. I can make so much content about it. But if it's not trending, or if it's not something that the government wants people to be savvy to, or if it's not something that mainstream corporations want you knowing about, it's going to be harder to get that stuff promoted, especially if I'm not paying for it to get promoted. And even if I am paying for it to get promoted, if it's a certain ideal or persona that I'm trying to talk about and go against the mainstream, it's easy to get banned just for saying stuff that's like legit. Um, you got to look into this stuff. Like people are easy to just like, oh, TikTok, scroll, 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 Instagram, swipe, 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 go on YouTube, watch some shorts, and then maybe watch a couple long form videos. And then the people who watch TV and stuff, it's like people don't notice that behind the scenes, there's an agenda, right? There's an agenda. And that's what I have the biggest problem with, is that we can't just be ourselves and create content and be free. We're not free. We're stifled. We are um limited. We are being made to be limited by these weird conspiracies. And when it comes to someone like Mal, who, you know, yes, they're well spoken. Yes, they're black. Yes, they were born female. The persona that's usually presented that's acceptable in society is the people who have like the toxic masculinity that has like a drama attached to it. There's usually a certain accent, from certain neighborhoods. Like when you talk about like inner cities and like accents, they're different from every state, every city. The accents are different, but there is this kind of like specific accent, this that's like from those types of neighborhoods. Um, the types of enunciation, the types of drama, like the physical, like fighting and pushing, and you know, just like the argument, the arguing style, the substance abuse, these are the things you see promoted. Now, people, do your homework. Do your homework, You know, a lot of this social media stuff, don't let it get in your head and don't let it warp the way that you think about people. Think about the people you know. If you don't know a stud or if you don't know a mask presenting person, you don't know any black mask presenting people, maybe this is the month to maybe try and go meet some. Because there might be events, there might be some kind of content out there. Get to know the variety of people. Always ask yourself, how authentic is this? Is this person doing this because this is what's going to get them paid? Or is this person doing this because this is really how everybody like this acts and is? Um, you know, I'm kind of on like an androgynous type of person, kind of I fit in that androgynous type of category. Um, you know, and like yesterday I was walking into an in and out and I'm walking towards and I see this dude at the door, not at the door, but he's like, on my way to the door, but standing kind of on the like sidewalk of the in and out property, and he's like as I'm walking closer to him, he kind of sees me coming in at a little distance. Caucasian male, bigger than me, like maybe a little younger or same age or so. And he's like, what's up, boss? Like, could you help me out with some like spare change kind of thing? And I'm like, okay, if I wasn't dressed the way that I was, he probably wouldn't have called me boss. That's a very specific like term that like usually if someone's dressed very feminine, they're not gonna get referred to as boss or bro and that kind of thing. Like he was kind of using that kind of language. And as he heard me talking, I'm like, I don't know if he knows that I'm a male or a female. Like I don't know. Like I mean, I was wearing a t-shirt, um, and board shorts and a hat. Like my hair sticking out from my hat. My t-shirt is fitted enough that you can see I've got like a female figure, and it's got flowers all over it and everything. Like I don't think I'm looking like a man, but and then when I was like I didn't have any change, so I just got him a cheeseburger while I was there, and I was like, hey, you know, just to let you know it's gonna take a bit, because they take a while. So I got myself my food and him a cheeseburger. And on my way out, I gave him the cheeseburger, and he's like, "Yeah, what's your name?" And I like told him my name. I have a very feminine name, and he was just kind of like, he said his name and like, "Thank you," kind of thing, and like, I'm like, "Cool, cool." Um, but it's just stuff like that where you're like, you get approached in a certain way. And he wasn't rude. There was nothing rude about him. Like he was perfectly respectful. Um, and the way he kind of asked for something, I was like, it didn't turn me away in a way that I was like, oh man, like, I was like, cool, I've got a couple extra bucks that I can, it's not like I was like down to my last dollar or anything and only had money for me. So I was like, if somebody asked me for something, it like, how much is a cheeseburger in and out? Like $3? Like, I'd rather give him a cheeseburger if he said he wanted one, so I gave him a cheeseburger. And yeah, he seemed cool with it. Um, but yeah, having experiences like that is like, it's like, okay, I can, have an experience like that and not have to feel um uh just it's a fine experience. Like I didn't feel upset by him or anything, but it's just like the language that people use when they are approaching you. It's like, I know it's confusing. I don't know what I would call someone like me when I see them either, and so it's like, I'm just like, whatever. Like I don't care if people identify me more masc or feminine with their kind of terms, but sometimes I'm like, are they using this term because they don't know what else other term to use, or because they kind of see how I'm dressed and they might just have to assume more towards one direction, or are they assuming that I'm a guy? Like, because in my neighborhood there's a lot of like skater surfer guys. I kind of dress very similarly to them with like the fitted caps, the board shorts, the surfer shirt brands and stuff like that. So you gotta be kidding me. It's like every time I try to every time I try to open the window to get like air without having the car turned on, this trash compactor keeps turning on. So basically, I'm mentioning all that kind of stuff just to say, sometimes it's not that clear. Um, you know, People approach you based on kind of how you look, kind of what they see. The brain automatically does this, so it's like sometimes it's kind of hard to really be like, oh, I'm gonna fault people. But yeah, getting back to Mal, people were saying so many things about, oh, she's so well spoken, so she doesn't represent, you know, black masked women, or you know, she doesn't represent LGBT, masked women because she didn't have this like toxic masculinity, didn't really have this kind of like inner city like kind of persona about her, and didn't have a certain accent, didn't have a certain way of mannerisms of trying to act like the whole like too cool for school kind of thing, and had good social skills. I mean, she talks in her interviews about what type of work she's in, like in HR and like communications. Uh, that takes communication skills. It's like there's a lot of people who are kind of in certain skills that it's ignorance, you guys. That's what it is. It's ignorance that people sometimes will see a person and just be like, well, you're not the way you're supposed to be. I get that a lot, as a black female. I get that a lot. Like, I don't get offended if people are like, oh, like on the phone or when you're talking you sound white. It's kind of like whatever. But at the same time, it's like, what makes you think that I'm white? Like, there's nothing about me that's white. Like, if you look at me, I'm not white. Like, I'm one of the darkest black people I know, and I'm not white at all. Like, there would be no mistaking. Even when I'm at my least tanned, there's no way that anybody would ever think that I'm white. Even if I use like a filter that makes me seem like my skin is lighter, I still don't look white. Like, there's nothing about me that's white. Um, but just for people to say that, it really just assumes that, if you're intelligent or saying things that are thought provoking, or even when I was working in the field of psychology and talking to clients by phone all the time, people just assume, oh, you're black and female. But also, I mean, they don't assume that you're black and female, but another thing that they don't assume um, is that, you know, um, that you're in that field. There aren't a lot of us from San Diego that are in San Diego that are in the field. So it makes sense. Like, most people have probably never had a black provider. That's rare. And so it does make sense that people wouldn't assume that I'm white. I mean, that people wouldn't assume that I'm black. In the field of psychology in San Diego, you don't see a lot of black female students or male black students. They just aren't there. There is a small population, but it's just not the majority of people. Like, you see more Latinos than you see black people. You rarely see black people. Rarely see black people. There aren't really a lot of groups for black people. There's not a lot of services specified for black people. Um, and that's one thing that, when it comes to, masculinity, um, I kind of want to challenge that too, because it's like there's different aspects of masculinity. Like, just because you dress with clothes from the men's section, like my clothes are usually from the men's section, but I don't think I look like a dude. Like, I've talked about it before. Like, the color schemes I choose with all the neons and bright colors and floral patterns. very girly style of, choices. Um, I like colors. I like neons and flowers and just colors. I like a lot of color. I don't even care if it's coordinated. I just like a lot of color, and I have like a style about myself that I like. And it's kind of interesting because until I watched that show Stud Daddies, or like looked around online a little bit more, I was like, okay, so the clothing style I have isn't that far from what a lot of studs dress like. But I didn't know that. Like I wasn't even like following too much content other than like Jess, who's Jay Killam, and like Amber's Closet. Other than that, there weren't really a lot of other ethnic minority type people, like Jade Fox and those guys. Like I've kind of followed their content, but um, I'm not really into like fashion that much. But in a way, I kind of am, just because like I have to find things that are comfortable for myself. And so in that way, it kind of makes me a little bit into fashion. People kind of know how I dress. People kind of know how I am. They're used to seeing me how I dress. I'm used to dressing the way that I do. But I mean, like my style for my preferences hasn't really changed. But as far as like for work, so for example, once I knew that I could kind of get away with like not having to wear like femme cut pants and like feminine blouses and stuff. Once I kind of knew that I could kind of just wear what I want to wear, um, at work, like what was still considered professional, I was able to kind of just change my clothing to wear that, stuff that I liked. I started wearing button ups instead of just like solid t-shirts. I started wearing, you know, uh, you know, different color jeans that were fitted instead of like female, work slacks. I started wearing um, sneakers instead of like Clarks and things like that, like the female brand Clarks. I started wearing sneakers, but I've had bright pink sneakers before. Right now, I have white sneakers with like baby blue and a little pink and yellow. Like, I've had sneakers that were like gray with purple. I like colors like that, but it's like I like them to be kind of in a mask fitted way, for my own comfort. But then I know it confuses people. But um, yeah, like I would just challenge people, when you see people who are masculine presenting, if you're not masculine presenting yourself, if you see people who are masculine presenting, I mean, just note, not not every masculine presenting person is toxic. Um, I know plenty of, people assigned male at birth who are masculine and aren't toxic with their masculinity. Like they're masculine, but they still have, a sensitive side to them. They're very good with their communication. I can see how it is hard, for masculine people because they have so many dang rules. And I think what happens is when a person embraces masculinity, a lot of the toxic aspects get kind of pushed onto people, because then it's like even in the gay community, it's like, oh, you can't do that because that's too gay. Like when people say like stud on stud or mask for mask, two females that are mask presenting dating each other, people look at that and they're like, you can't do that. That's weird. I mean, with gay men, you can have two femme men dating each other. Nobody really is going to say too much because they're already feminine, they're already male. Um, but people are already going to give them a hard time because they're male and they're femme. It's hard to play that whole card of like who gets treated worse kind of thing. But I would say that as as a female that kind of dresses more mask, I think nowadays I get treated fine because of the awareness that's out there, because I'm hanging around LA and San Diego a lot and stuff. But I do get a little bit of looks, like if I go into like changing rooms or locker rooms or bathrooms and stuff like that. Like sometimes people kind of try to think that I'm going to the wrong one, or like that still happens. Or Um, when I'm like at a store or something, like if someone kind of assumes that I'm like a black male, they might, like, I've seen people kind of jump, at a counter. It's like they're serving people and they kind of jump because they think I'm like a black man coming up to them and stuff like that. And then when I start talking and they hear my voice and they're like, "Oh, you're a female," and they actually get a good look, and then they're like, "Oh, you're female," and they kind of calm down a little more because I'm a black female. But it's like, I've seen how people react to black men even though I'm not a man. I've seen how people react to men even though I'm not a man. Just by the way I dress. Like when I go to festivals a lot, I've got people bumping all into me and stuff just because I've got a hat on. And when it gets dark, you can't really tell who's who. And then, but then I get the other side where it's like the flirty ladies who are like, they see you and they know you're like a femme, they know you're like a masked looking person. And if they like that, they're going to be a little bit friendly. So it's kind of like you kind of get a lot of different things that, the typical femme person might not get. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, I know a lot of femme people who get very harassed, along with masked people who get very harassed. Um, just queer people in general who get harassed, masculine gay people who are males who get harassed, trans people who get harassed. Like there's harassment on all ends. The trans community, I would say, if we're talking like higher level of deaths and killings and murders and things, like, they're at the top of that list. Unfortunately, they're at the top of the list of people who are getting, the extreme crimes against them and the least protection from most of the states. But also it's like, it has to do with the gender things as well. Like our country is so weird with gender. It's I think that is toxic. Like our country has a very toxic approach to gender. It's like if you want to fall outside of the norms, you're gonna get ridiculed, you know, you're gonna get told how you need to dress. You're gonna get told what's not professional just because you don't fit into the mold. You're gonna be told all kinds of stuff that you can't talk a certain way because of your race, or that maybe you're faking how you are because you don't meet somebody's idea of how someone like you looks should be actually acting and talking. Um, it's complex, and I think Mao is a perfect example of, a challenge to the mold and the persona that the mainstream wants to present. Pay attention to what the mainstream is trying to present, because they are making a conscious effort to present a certain type of people in a certain way. You will rarely see sensitive, well spoken black masculine females, if you see them at all, in the mainstream media. If you see them at all, they're not likely going to be there. Usually they're like pretty, aggressive, um, with a lot of toxic masculine traits. Um, but take someone like Lena Waithe in Master of None. Take her in Master of None. She's not toxically masculine. Um, you know, so it's like, and if you don't know people in real life, it's gonna be hard to really make those uh comparisons. It's like if you don't really know the people in actual life, it's gonna be hard to be like, oh yeah, like this is accurate or inaccurate. I would encourage people to meet people, even if it's online communities. Join those, follow them, go online, see who's interacting with them, see what their content is like. You know, we're out there, and not all of us have toxic traits, but that's what you're gonna see, is the toxic people who, and I'm not saying like that people shouldn't have that like overly aggressive masculinity, and like that there's anything wrong with a certain accent or a certain persona or a certain way of presenting yourself and like doing all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being like that. It's just that's not the only representation, you know. Cis het culture is so uh, inaccurate with the way they want to portray everybody. Um, for too long, we've been stuck being told that we have these certain identities by the majority culture, and that's what they want to display because it makes sense to them. Like, how often do you see queer couples? There's usually a masc one, there's usually a more effeminate one. You usually don't see a whole spectrum. You see what they want you to see. Like, how long has the story been in mainstream media that, oh, the queer people need to come out, and like every time somebody comes out, they're getting kicked out of their house and their families are disowning them, and they just make a drama out of it. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen because that is realistic, but is it 100% of people? No. Plenty of people have good coming out experiences. Not everybody just comes out once. It's like you come out to every freaking person you meet. You know, every person you know who's new to you, you eventually might have to mention, like, oh, like, I'm interested in this gender or that gender or whatever. I'm dating this type of person, that type of person. Um, I'm not big on coming out. I don't think anybody should have to come out. You know, it's not like a forced thing. I don't think it's necessary. I think straight culture is like, we need to know if you're gay, and so they make it seem like people need to come out. But to me, I'm like, I don't really do that. I'm like, if you don't know me, I'm not, you know, really gonna say much. And then if you do know me, you'll know because I will just be talking about it casually. You know, like if I say that I went on a date and it's a woman, I mean, you'll probably figure it out that, oh, like you date women sometimes. Like, yeah, you know, but I don't need to have like, oh, let's sit everybody down and I'm gonna come out to them and tell them my identity and all. If you want to do that, good. That's on you. That's your own thing. If that's what feels authentic to you, then do it. But I don't think everybody has to do it. Like, how often do straight people have to be like, okay, I'm gonna sit down with my family and like cook this whole dinner and have this whole revealing of like that I'm straight, you know, that I'm now dating, you know, I'm a man and I'm now dating a woman and I need my family to know this, you know, like maybe if your family thinks you're gay, maybe you'll say it like that, but it's like people just assume it and you just get on with your day. Like there's no discussion about why are you dating women if you're a man? Why are you dating women? Like why do you like women? Are you sure you like women if you've never tried being with a man? You know, like maybe you should, you know, try, you know, being with a couple men, you know, people getting kicked out for dating like, you know, for having like a heterosexual dating relationship, like that kind of stuff. It's like if you when you flip the roles and you flip the cards, you're like, this doesn't make that doesn't sound like why should gay people have to do things that way? And then straight people, like when you put like a straight, you know, couple or a straight person into the same questions and treatment that LGBT people experience, it's like why should we have to experience it that way? Um, we don't. It's just that's the narrative that's been taught to us that, like, oh man, you better be stressed out because eventually, if you're LGBT, you're gonna have to come out. No, you don't. You don't have to come out. Like, I mean, maybe if you're dating people, you'll probably have to, like, tell them what's going on. Like, that to me makes sense. You know, if you're dating someone, you know, but usually you're looking directly for that. And if you are experimenting or questioning and not really too sure, then hopefully once you figure it out, that would be the time to like be honest and, you know, forthright about it. But I don't think people have to go through the whole like let me make a whole you know, like put it all out on the table and put themselves out there in a way that other people get this kind of power to be like rejecting or choosing if they're gonna accept you. Is like just live your life. And if people find out that you're gay along the way and they hate you now, it's like that's fucked up and that's their own shitty problem. Like that has nothing to do with you. um I mean, if they already liked you before and then they just find out you're gay and now they don't, I mean, that's stupid and they're prejudiced. And you know, it's unfortunate, you know, that they're not going to get to have that relationship with you. or at least not a healthy relationship, if they're gonna be toxic about it. But challenge everything, guys. Challenge everything. Challenge everything I say. Challenge everything. Don't just listen and just be like, okay, if something makes you upset, if something gets you kind of like emotionally charged up, why? Why? A lot of times what happens is when people's ideas get challenged, what they want to do is they're like, their mind gets so mad because they're like, it takes a lot of effort and energy to try to like wrap our heads around some new kind of ideas. So even me saying stuff like this or writing stuff about studs being, black women and not white women, things like that, like the term stud, who it's used for and who can use it and things like that. People get mad and it's like, well, why do you want to get mad? Why do you, if that's how it is, like, why do you want to get mad about it? People want to get mad when it's something that they don't understand or that they don't want to take the effort to understand. Initially, the mind gets mad. It's like, I'm pissed off. I don't want to listen. It shuts down. That's what happens. It's called cognitive dissonance. Like, so when you find yourself getting emotionally charged about something, always ask yourself why, and always dive deeper into it and try to ask yourself what's going on there, because a lot of times there's a reason behind it. It's usually a very unconscious reason, but usually you can kind of get to why you're upset about something and kind of try to see if you could see it from other perspectives. See if there's maybe one or two or three ideas against your main belief that kind of disprove what you believe. And why would other people believe this opposite way from me? Okay, that makes sense that they believed it because of this or because of that. You can still have your own opinions. You can still be strong in your own opinions, but the more we don't try to see things from other angles, the more we get stuck and don't grow. That's how you grow. Um, you grow by expanding your mind into other ideas, not letting your mind get mad and shutting off everything and not even like looking into it. Like, you can research into something and just be like, yeah, that really isn't for me. But most people, their mind is you got to build that. That's a muscle you got to build to be able to get comfortable. I'm not saying like expose yourself to like traumatic material. I'm just saying like get comfortable with these different ways that the media presents different personas of different people, especially minority populations, whether that's ethnic or gender or sexual minorities or any kind of minorities. Um, Pay attention to what they're doing to us. Pay attention to how they are mistreating us and the narratives that they want us to follow. They don't want us to win. They don't want us to be successful. They don't want us to have high self esteem. They don't want us to thrive in life. They want us to feel small and bad and flawed. And so we can, you know, participate in their world the way that they need us to participate for their comfort. That's what it is. Um, but yeah, look at some content with Mal in it. She's got some, you know, um, there's a lot of aspects to her that, the representation is really cool. Uh, Nobody's perfect, myself included, but you know, it's good that there's content out there that's representative. So, all right, I'll keep on these topics, but for now, that's all I really gotta say. And thanks for listening.